Very good.
Okay.
Now, so I shall say welcome everyone. Welcome to this awesome session, which is a part of the Career by Design series on my LinkedIn profile. Something that I've been doing for, I would say, more than a year now. Talking about career management and specifically for women high achievers in the corporate world. But I rather call it women high achievers, professional women high achievers, because some of them are not in the corporate world, but still professional and working. This time we are talking about transitioning into a new job with confidence. And again, this series, which is the second one in the row, and each series has 13 webinars. This series is all about in a different format. So the first session is always a discussion about the topic, and the second session, which is today, is talking to an expert, an amazing woman who has done it, has been there, and has a lot to share with us on her journey professionally. So today we have Viola. Viola, I will let you introduce yourself in a second. Viola is, for me, most of all, a good friend, but she's an amazing woman, very accomplished, a fellow coach as well, but she has much more to offer than that. So Viola, off to you. We will be talking about transitioning into a new job with confidence, landing in your dream job, and a couple of more. But before we do this, why don't you just tell us a couple of things about yourself?
Very briefly, because I think it's much nicer to hear about practical knowledge and tips than someone's bio. So, but just to give you context, I moved to UK in my very early 20s, so not with a professional career as yet. So I built my professional life in UK, and most of the years I worked for the government in London. It is a sort of environment where rules itself with different principles to the private and commercial world. But going through various stages, promotions, and applying for different posts, sometimes way above my head, but I still did it. I did a couple of significant jumps in my career just to realize that actually now I need to pivot. And I came to Poland at the moment. I live here, and I changed my career from business oriented and public sector service to a professional coach in business and a teacher lecturer at the university. So this is in a nutshell. I also, in the meantime, which perhaps I will have opportunity to share a little bit more later, I set up a supplementary school for Polish children in London, which I founded in 2012, and I was the director of that school for several years. Once I've built it up, I handed it over because that was my additional career alongside my full-time job for the government. So I now fulfill a role of a trustee in that school, which is a registered charity in England.
Awesome. This is awesome. This is really very impressive. And it's really in a nutshell, because there's so much more to add to this. But thank you so much for joining us for this, Viola, because I think there is no one like you to share about career transitions, and not only transitions, but also pivots, as you say, which is going from one sector to another, one type of role to another, which always requires a lot of courage, I would say, to begin with. And this is this can be very difficult, but it's doable. And this is what we are going to talk about today. Viola, I will let you speak in a second, but before I do, I want to go back to our agenda because, as I said, this meeting builds on a previous one, which was all about career transitions. So today we want to recap just a little bit, not necessarily 10 minutes, of the key points during the webinar a couple of weeks ago, so that we set the context for today's questions for Viola. And of course, there will be a time for questions at the end as well. I will skip the slide about myself because most of you know me. Like Viola, I made a pivot a couple of years ago from the corporate life and leadership positions in the corporate life to helping women, high achievers, to make the next step in their career. And this is why I'm here today, hosting those kind of sessions and sharing my experience and knowledge. Now, for the webinar recap, the key themes that we were discussing were what does it take to make a successful career transition? What does it mean to transition, and why we should not be afraid of transitioning, and how we should prepare for a successful transition. One of the key points were to identify what we call your non-negotiables, and non-negotiables are everything from your values to your passions, to everything that matters to you before you make this transition, even to a different job. Oftentimes we start with, oh, I don't want to work in this company, I don't want to be this person anymore, I want to look for something else. And then we start with what's out there on the market. What jobs are being advertised at the moment? What companies are hiring? I think this should be flipped completely to what do I want? Who do I want to become? Where do I want to work? Whom I want to work with? What do I want to achieve? And therefore, what are my non-negotiables? What are my values? Do I want to work from home, or do I want to return to the office? Do I want to work for every single brand, or will I exclude, like a recent client of mine who is currently in the brewery industry, and now he says, I no longer want to work for a brewery industry. I want to work for something that is really, really useful and valuable for other people. And I no longer see beer as something that is so important and even good for people. So that's one of the non-negotiables. And there is loads, from values to passions to logistics even. The next one was, once we have those non-negotiables, how to bridge the confidence gap, which is, okay, I want to pivot, like Viola, I want to pivot from the government related jobs and working with the government institutions to being a coach, or to work with setting up schools for children. Am I good enough? How do I know I can do it? How do I convince others I can do it? And on top of that, of course, strategic networking and building a support system, which is when you want to pivot, already too late. So how to build this system before you decide to pivot, how to manage this. And then once you have it all and you know where you want to go and where you don't want to go, how to master the modern interview process, showcasing your value, how to prepare to it. It's of utmost importance to prepare properly. And during this interview process, how to negotiate your worth and securing the right package. Because study after study after study show that women don't negotiate. They usually take what's offered to them. And we all know that what we start with is really, really important, because otherwise it's later on, it's very difficult to negotiate halfway through. And then once we have it all, then onboarding with intention, setting ourselves up for success. How to make this successful landing. There's this well-known book about the 90 first days in a company, which is the 3 months. And we all know that presidents, for example, like a president of the United States, they have 100 days to kind of prove themselves. After 100 days, they would always come up and share what they have worked out, what their strategy is, what they want to achieve, and how. And this is how we should be approaching our new role as well. And I would argue the 90 first days start much sooner than we even start the job. We should prepare for it carefully. So these are all the key points that we were discussing during the webinar. And on those, I built a couple of questions for Viola. In fact, there's more than a couple of questions, and I must confess I shared them with Viola beforehand. And I asked her which of them you would like to talk about. And Viola said bravely, all of them. Just flash them out, and we'll be talking
briefly
about all of them. Briefly.
all of them, but briefly, because they're all so good.
Exactly. Okay, so off to you, Viola, now. We will start with building on your non-negotiables in a new role. And I should now say that we have 7 sections and 2 questions for every section. And those 7 questions are the ones that I have just briefly recapped from the previous webinar. So off we go with the first one, building on our non-negotiables, maintaining and amplifying. Sorry, that's all of them, but we will go the 7 that I mentioned. I'm not going to read them again, but we'll go to this first key theme, which is building on your non-negotiables in this new role. I will flash out, Viola, those 2 questions that I prepared for you. One of them is the very thing that after the session last time we identified our non-negotiables. And the question here really is, okay, it's all very good to identify our non-negotiables, but how do we make sure that that they are honored and integrated into our experience? In other words, that they are not something that we will hope for the best but prepare for the worst, and be sure that this is something that we can truly and really achieve. And once this is done, then what are the subtle signs, because the obvious signs we will all notice, that they may not be honored during the first part of our time in the company, and how to handle them?
Thing that I really value about your work, Isabella, is that you are spreading the knowledge and the concept of planning your career. And you've introduced that in your earlier section today by saying that certain process should be flipped on its head, because most people, they look for jobs without thinking, how does that fit in my journey? And the reason why I'm highlighting this yet again is because hopefully now you are in this new role, and by now you would have had identified your non-negotiable. And as it says on the tin, if they are non-negotiable, then unless they fulfilled, you are ready to turn around and walk away, because you don't negotiate those values. Usually those are your values. There could be other aspects that are on your non-neg list. So let's presume that you have your non-negotiable clearly defined. Some of those will be values, some will be certain behaviors, which is underpinned by values anyway. But the key point around this is how much value placed on those non-negotiables. Are they really non-negotiable, or are they slightly negotiables? That is an important question that you need to ask yourself, because the compromise is welcomed, but not at all cost in every situation. I had been fortunate to get into the senior management role, which was 3 steps removed from the chief executive of the local government in Southwest London. And so my boss reported to the deputy of the chief executive, which basically meant that I was in a close proximity of very senior leadership. And yet, I have been tasked with uh, jobs and responsibilities that were of the junior administrator. There is no problem with doing various jobs because not every single task in your daily work is of a high caliber. But I was clearly aware that the value that I should be bringing through my experience and my ability to lead and to create was taken over by less skilled tasks that I was allocated. And so when you notice that slowly but surely your role is changing through you taking tasks that were not aligned with your original job description, that like in my case, I started becoming a glorified administrator as opposed to a leader. When you start feeling that you're not comfortable with the delegations that you receive, but you can't really put your finger on it. Those are the subtle things that your alignment with your values or your non-negotiables are going awry. And so the first thing to do is definitely not to ignore it, but to give it a thinking time. I call it strategic thinking time because you want to look inwards and you want to review those values and ask yourself questions such as, where did I compromise? Where did I flex? Why? Why it was important for me to accept that task, knowing that it wasn't fulfilling me? And in a sort of a heat of the day when you, particularly if your role is very much operational and there is a lesser proportion of strategizing and planning, you might not find time to think those thoughts. And you might be driven by emotion, if it's this negative emotional bit after work. And if you have responsibilities like many women do, you will be swept away for the rest of the day up till the night, thinking about other things. But you as a senior professional in your role, you are entitled to your strategic time, your planning time, your thinking time, because that's where your skill lies in, not only in doing, but also in creating, thinking, and planning. So when you, for example, prepare for a conversation with your superior, make sure that you are prepared with facts, research, evidence, and that you have thought through things that are on your mind, that you reach the point where you've got clarity and you know why you feel that gut feeling that is disturbing you. So for me, unfortunately, Krypton, I wasn't as wise as I am now because I wouldn't have that experience at that time. This is why I can share that with you because I've experienced that. And retrospectively, we are all a little bit more wiser, a little bit more knowledgeable. But the lesson that I've learned from it is that those very subtle signs are made of things such as intuition, gut feeling, a change in your responsibilities that is hard to pinpoint. Is not a change to the list of responsibilities you have, but it's perhaps the nature of the task that might be changing. When your feedback or your insight is not clearly valued, is maybe brushed off, you notice that maybe there is no follow-up to your insights. So, for example, you share certain observations, or you made some recommendations, but it's just accepted as a matter of fact, and then there's there's no further conversation around it. Whereas if you're offering a solution or if you're making a recommendation, if it's valued, there would be something to follow on and to pick that conversation with your superior later. The very non so subtle signs for me, it was the toxicity in the leadership team. So when I joined the team of 3 senior managers that were working under the head of the service, I didn't realize I was stepping into a hot boiling pot with a lot of emotional and professional complex dynamics, because it turns out, there was a lot of animosity, and I was caught in the middle of it. For someone like me, if you share similar values with me, which is harmony and collaboration and transparency and openness, that was the last place that you want to be. And it might not show up as a big blow off. I mean, the culture, the work culture that I was working in did not, fortunately, allow the big arguments and fights and swearing and shouting. That's not how people carried out their conflicts. It was far more subtle. So if you are in a situation where you normally among your friends and your family, you don't you don't have relationships where you've got a lot of animosities, where you like peacefulness and harmony, and then you step into a workplace where that is lacking, that should be a very big clue that it's going to clash with your values at some point. So what's the solution to it? Well, the question is, are they really your non-negotiable? Because if they are and you can't fix them, then you would walk away. The smaller non-negotiables, such as, for example, open door policy, don't just talk about your protecting your time if that's your non-negotiable. You just design it, you do it. You put in your calendar a blocked time where you do not have the meetings, and you let your colleagues and your seniors know. You also perhaps you haven't come across that phrase, but I do use it a lot, actually, to the irritation of some of my colleagues: managing your manager. So you're managing up, just like you're managing down. If you're in a senior role, you're probably very good at it, but you also need to manage your manager, particularly in terms of expectations and in terms of your non-negotiables. So if you need a regular time with your manager, you need to create that for yourself. And it's not because you need it, it's because it's going to make you more effective. And that's what organization wants. Your manager wants you to do the best job because that benefits the organization, and you want the same. That's why you are in that job. So pointing at the common benefits and gains, you can negotiate and you can manage your non-negotiable to your advantage.
Thank you so much. It's awesome how and what you shared. I really like the example about you being put in the role which sounded very senior to begin with, and in fact was, but the tasks that were assigned to you were quite junior. I immediately think about another layer to it, because I experienced the same early in my career, and I, like you, I would have behaved differently now than I did back then, because I was much younger and much less confident, and I didn't think about it that way. I always was thinking in kind of like a good faith, but it backfired eventually. The additional layer that I put on this now is that it often happens to women who are much more frequently assigned junior admin type of tasks than men. Therefore, this may very often happen. So this sounds really familiar, and I think that this one is perhaps also very important, because another thing that you said really wisely is you have a couple of solutions. You either walk away, as you said, if it's really non-negotiable, or you accommodate somehow, or you don't accommodate, and as you say, you manage expectations and manage your manager, and you go and negotiate with them rather than with yourself. I think the difficult one is to walk away if we have no means of walking away, if we don't have the alternative to walk away. And then I think the way you shared it is, okay, let's start with seeing what is the alternative. Let's prepare for a discussion with our line. Let's see whether it's a culture or just a behavior. Is it something that we can change or not? And eventually we will be put in the situation. We will have to decide. We either are staying and trying to change the environment, or we have to walk away. And the reason why I'm dwelling on this is that when I remember my own example, I stayed far too long in that role and in that situation because I wasn't brave enough to negotiate it on behalf of myself. I felt very bitter, disappointed, unhappy. I'm sure it was seen and visible. It's not a very senior behavior, and it backfires eventually. So thank you for sharing, because I think it's very, very important when we sit down and talk to ourselves on what is non-negotiable, what is negotiable, and if something is non-negotiable, what will I do with that if it happens? And that's back to the concept, Viola, that you outlined at the beginning of career by design. Okay, let's hope for the best, prepare for the worst. If it does happen, do I walk away? If I have to walk away, what my options are? Do I have any options? Yes, please, let's have other options, because then we are stuck. Viola, thank you so much. This was really, really awesome. Now, assuming that we found this job and we are now transitioning, how do we maintain and amplify the confidence during transition? And even going backwards a little bit, how do we find confidence before transitioning? Because many of us do not pivot and do not transition because we have this imposter syndrome. No, I'm not going to do this because I'm not good enough. Yes, thousands of people did it, but not me. So how do we do it? So what I would like to start with, Viola, is what specific challenges we might face in maintaining this confidence, even if we convince ourselves that we are good enough. What are those practical strategies that we can employ, and how we can leverage our past successes and strengths to build this confidence to A, decide for a transition, B, prepare for it, and then finally transit. After you, Viola.
Now, this imposter syndrome, the term itself is a little bit something that makes me cringe, because it's unfair to it's unfair to yourself to tell yourself that you've got imposter syndrome. Not to deny the fact that you might doubt in your own ability, but looking into the genealogy of that term, it actually was invented by a man. So in its own right, I reject it just because it is a label that I wouldn't want to give myself. That not to say that I doubt my abilities, that I feel like maybe I got to do something or had opportunity and was a pure chance, luck, etc. And we all have those doubts. But if we come from the premise that we need to know everything, we need to do everything super well, that we are not allowed mistakes, then sure enough, we're inviting those doubts and self-criticism. I let you into a little secret, which to someone like you, it's not probably a secret at all, but to new managers or new leaders or being in a new role, new environment, it might be that no one expects you to have all the answers. Just because you have been appointed to a senior role doesn't mean that you know everything and you can do everything perfectly. Quite opposite. If the person that appointed you was a skilled leader, they would have banked on your potential, on your experience, and in full knowledge that there is a room for improvement and that you want to grow. Therefore, there will be situations where you don't have answers and you need to find them and learn them. But it's your ability to find those answers, learn those lessons, is what is valuable to the organization. So if you just take this one truth into heart, that you in new role, new or old, unless you decide to stop growing, you do not need to have all the answers. You just need to know how to find them. Then it will really lift a big weight off your shoulder. So with the internal critic, I actually have this fortune of stumbling upon a program and the framework which teaches people how to handle the internal conversations that are least helpful to us. And through the positive intelligence, I trained as a coach, and now I help others to do that. So I have a toolbox full of tools that would help me to deal with it. But obviously, not everyone is in that position. So what I would say is that your confidence mainly comes through doing, not thinking, not feeling, but from doing. So if you want to feel more confident, you need to do the things that you want to expand confidence in. And in your new role, it will basically translate into you saying yes to things that you feel that you want to say no. Because your resourcefulness and what you've achieved to date, you have capacity and you have capabilities to go for further growth. And that's how you would develop, by taking on tasks or taking on responsibilities or offering support to others where you can learn something new. Because for the whole reason why you are in a new role is probably because you wanted to progress. You wanted to learn something new. You wanted a new challenge. You wanted expansion. So you had enough confidence to get that. So let it not stop you now from keep going, from continuing. So expand further by taking new tasks. Sitting at the meeting in my first few days, there was so much jargon. It was all during the pandemic, so new team, new area of work, a lot of acronyms, and voice in my head says, "You don't know what they're talking about, do you? You're not gonna do well in this job." But then there is always a balance, and you need to let your other voice to come to the surface too, which would say, "No, you can manage. I mean, you got the job, so obviously they must think that you are capable. So don't deny them opportunity to see it." So internal dialogue is something that we all have, but how do you allow those voices to come through would make a big difference to your action, to the task, to the behavior that you're going to demonstrate. My little tip is that the main critic, and I teach that in my positive intelligence program, the main critic has a persona. And as a woman, you might relate that to as a female persona or maybe a male, but give it a name, give it a physical attributes, and then I have a conversation with this judge. And sometimes I tell him to shush. Most of the time, I tell him to shush. So my other sort of strength can come through. In the situation where you want to do something practical to amplify your confidence, apart from managing, your doubts in your head, is boiling down to how helpful you can make yourself in the organization. Because as you balancing, your perhaps perceived reputation or your lack of confidence, the opportunities around you are coming and going. And as we focus on negative, we don't see them. They just pass us. They're just not noticeable to our brain because our brain is busy proving to us that this negative statement is true. So I would say, look for ways to make your work visible. At the meeting, if they're talking about something you don't know, make a note, go and find out, speak to people. You always want to take action on things that scare you a little bit or create doubts in your head, because that's where the growth lies. And your confidence grows with taking action, not with contemplating or self-talking.
Yola, thank you so much. It's so unbelievable and so rich. Thank you so much for all your thoughts. I particularly liked the sequence that you used, saying that first of all you want to pivot, you want to change, therefore you're itching for something new. Something deep inside must know that you are ready, and if you're ready and you are jumping from one thing to another, it means that you are bringing a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge to your next endeavor. So trust this one. And then if they want you and they hire you, they bet on you, they trust you, they know you can make it, but they also know that you are new. Therefore, they will be expecting you to, and that's the third one, be asking questions and not knowing. Not knowing is okay. Asking questions is okay. Admitting you don't know is okay too. But then take it away and find out, because no one is perfect. And finally, I really love this positive psychology program that you mentioned, Viola, and the techniques and tools. And indeed, the judge is something that all of us have. Yeah, for my I know the way you said you just shush it oftentimes, and we all have different techniques. For me, one of the techniques to shush it or to talk to it is just look at it as something that is friendly, no matter what he or she, and she in my case, what she says. It's a friendly creature which tries to warn me of various, the various problems, like, oh, don't go there because you don't know it, or you don't know the answer, you don't even put your head up because you don't know, and so on. So it's protecting me from making a fool of myself. So what I'm saying to it, I visualize it here on my arm, saying it to, oh, here you are. Hello, thank you so much. I can do without it. Thank you so much. Off you go. But it's a various techniques that will be useful for us. And it's just to recognize that it does exist, and then try and come to terms with it. because you are not alone. Everybody has it. Viola, now the best is yet to come. Strategically deepening your network in the new context. That's awfully, awfully important. How about your network, Viola, before you transition and after you transition?
Oh, network, I love it. Not because I am extrovert, but because it's such a undervalued tool in your toolbox. It doesn't cost you anything to speak to people, to be nice to people, to ask how they are, how their day is going today, etc. It's a little bit deeper than that, obviously, but building network is to me is a twofold process. One, when you're in a new place, you want to be, that's the technique that I use. I want to know as many people as possible. So I use this sales funnel sort of illustration. You know, in sales, people talk about sales funnel and they want to catch everyone who is potentially your customer. Well, for me, I want to meet as many people as possible because potentially some of those people are going to turn to be key players in my professional journey. And so I'm depositing in the bank of relationships constantly, whether it is 1 penny or whether it is 1 million, whether I offer someone, my service and say, look, I can help you with that, or I can connect you with this person. You've spoken to many people, wrapping your head around who does what in your organization, who can help with what, or who you can be of service to, because that's where you're building the relationships by connecting with people. Later on, there'll be time when you can strategize about it and look for a mentor or allies or just friends. Because everyone needs a friend at the workplace. I know we don't need to make friends with everybody, but it would be a very hard environment if you didn't have any friendly faces in your environment. So for me, networking is about two things: building relationships, but also moving forward. So you can do it through either connecting on a personal or professional level. You can do it through work. I mean, in cultures like Western Europe, which are very much sort of universalist, or task-oriented, you offer your service, or you offer your input, or you connect people that will make their task easier or their project possible, and you're depositing into the relationship bank all the time. You can practically ask anybody to introduce you to others who might be of a good connection for you. So just like you speak to your manager and you inform them, you make them aware that you are keen to meet your counterparts in other departments, or you are interested in attending a meeting as an optional attendees if that's available to you. You do the same with others, you do the same with colleagues, you do the same with your team that you manage. You basically make yourself full, and in time you will realize which of those connections, what values are in those connections, which of those are very strategic, which of those are purely for your emotional support, which you're going to need at some point. Leadership roles are quite lonely at times, particularly the more senior you are, the more solitude you will experience in your decisions. If you make unpopular decisions, which is part of the job, then you definitely need your network for moral and also sometimes technical support. You definitely can benefit by collaborating with others. I mean, I've made so many different things possible just because I ask favors, and maybe those are not strictly favors in the sense of, that's what I call them. That's what I like people to feel when I approach them, that they do me kindness. I don't like the style of delegation where you expect. Obviously, sometimes it's necessary, but most of the time when I communicate with people, I'm making sure that they understand that it is a great privilege that they agree that I have, that they can help me because although technically they might need to do it or it's their job to do it, but they still have a choice to do it well or to do it just out of duty. And I always like to uh, uh, let people know that I appreciate that they do it out of their kindness as opposed to their duty. Um, the other thing that I really strongly recommend when you're in your new role and you're developing your connections is to look at the organization chart. Try to understand people's roles, their connections, how they fit in this landscape of your role. So who collaborates with whom about what projects, and then as you keep your eyes and ears open, help people to connect. Don't shield the information because you never know who you're going to cross your paths with. And as your deposit in your relationship bank grows, you will be able to withdraw at some point. Uh, the worst thing that is for relationships is when that someone knows that you could have done it, but you chose not to do it. So if you put a request to someone and they say no, they give an excuse, you know how it feels. You know that they could have helped you, but they chose not to. That shuts the door. That there's very little goodwill beyond that point. So I always bank on people's goodwill, and I try to give a lot of that in return to them, and it pays off. I usually, when it comes to building relationships, I usually have quite a lot of success in that in my environment. That's mainly because it's my value as well. I don't function well in a hostile environment. So for me, it's very important to get along with people. Um, there's been times where the project wouldn't have moved forward if not for the relationships and the networks, because sometimes you just need this extra mile that someone will go for you. And I remember I was organizing an event here at the university. It was a one-day conference. And the campus has two buildings that are about 8 minutes apart by foot. So I needed to get something transported, and I needed someone to open a facilities for me. So all those favors, so people would jump in a car and drive me, and people would bring things over when it's needed, or people fix leaking hot tub for the water in the catering area. And they did it because it was something that, they know that I needed, and other times I did something that they needed. Like, for example, no problem, I can sort it out for you. I can write you that little note or report or whatever that is. I think there are organizations where there is a culture of not being helpful. And going back to the question number one, if you're going to take a job, it's wise to find out in advance as much as possible what kind of culture and what kind of relationships, how they are in this organization, how valuable are they? Because once you're in it, you will get a true picture of what it's like. And if this is your non-negotiable, then we've got a bigger problem on hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very important topic, especially for women, networking. And you nailed it all down from we don't like networking, especially women again, because we see it transactional, but we do have to, otherwise it will backfire anyway. So we have to network, but we have to network, as you said, strategically. Be strategic about it. Do go and talk to people, but then make a sense of it, who you want to be in a relationship with professionally. Who do you need to, who do you want to, and how you can help those people, because it is a two-way street. It definitely is. And then do use those relationships both ways, helping people and getting their advice and their help back. So that's of crucial importance. Thank you, Viola. I definitely miscalculated time for this very, very interesting discussion, because we had theme 3. We have 4 more themes to go. I know we are talking here on a podcast, and that's the way we want to treat it. Is the question is to you now. I know people who joined us will have to jump off now, because we are at the top of the hour. I'm sure you may want to jump off. So do you think we can continue this discussion at another day as a part 2, and then tackle the 4 remaining ones while we go through the 3 very quickly at the beginning? Do you think this makes sense, or do you want to continue?
Well, we definitely can break it up onto part 2 of this conversation. A, because I enjoy it so much. B, because I would love to share a couple of more things that I think might be of some use to people. So by all means, we can schedule more. Let me just check something for a
Yeah.
moment. We've got a topic on showcasing your value and your capacities. Yes.
Correct. That's the one. Then we have another one on renegotiating or advocating for your worth in the new landscape. That's about money. That's about positions. That's about seniority. That's very, very important. And we have
That would be a good one to link with negotiation
exactly evolving your
because
yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's all about negotiations. You're absolutely right. And then evolving your onboarding with intention in the long term. That's important, the first 90 days and beyond. And finally, this will be for you to give us one piece of advice from your perspective. So do you think we can now call it the day, and then invite people to part 2, where you can
yes,
share even more?
definitely. End of part 1 to be continued.
Exactly. Exactly. And thank you so much, Viola, because it was absolutely awesome. We will now share the recording with everybody who registered, which is more than 90 people. And I know a lot of them would not be able to attend, therefore they asked for the recording. And I'm sure after that, even more people will be joining us. Viola, thank you so much. I know how busy you are.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time very, very much. And I know people will be taking a ton of information from this. Thank you so much, everybody who joined us live, and to everybody who listens on the recording.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and looking forward to part 2.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.